Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of the Cathode Ray podcast. This week, Steve is back. First of all, good to see you, Steve. Happy to see you, mate.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I guess thank you to Roger for stepping in and doing such a wonderful job there.
He was at a moment's notice, bro. You
6
if you show
a.m.,
any
I was
weakness, you show any weakness, Roger's gonna be clawing out. He's gonna be fixing CRT soon and shit.
Yeah.
However,
great job.
also on the show today, we have graphic designer. He's someone whose work, I dare say, if you're in our community, you've definitely seen this guy's work before. And his name is Mason Conrad, and he's a graphic designer. And where you might know him from is the many, many YouTube thumbnails that he has designed. Most recently, working for stuff like Bob at Retro RGB. He's doing some Steve's thumbnails now. Even if you're on my channel, he started because it's a good stuff. And wanted to talk to Mason today. He's a guy in the community, whether you've heard of him or not, you know. And that's very interesting. People really behind the scenes. And also to talk to Mason a little bit about designers, creatives, freelancers, how that work is. And maybe if you ever need to engage with a creative person or a freelancer in your work, or maybe you're creating stuff, maybe you'll get some tips through this episode about what it's like from the other side. And we all know the memes about graphic designers having a million edits and terrible customers. How can you not be a terrible customer? How can you be a good customer? Let's say to a freelancer. We'll try to answer
like a
that.
101.
So Mason.
Hello.
Mason, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, guys. This is going to be fun. I'm excited.
That's
doing
cool,
very
man.
good.
So where are you based out of? What's your average day look like on a day-to-day basis?
So right now, my sleep schedule is terrible, so I usually wake up whenever I want in southeastern Ohio. There's no restaurants, nothing really fun around here, so I just get up and come to the office room. That's where I'm at right now. I just bought a house, so I have a room dedicated for this now. So I just kind of come here and hang out on my computer, get distracted by Twitter once in a while, and I'll just hang out, work on commissions.
Nice. So why did you recently move to? Have you always been in Ohio, or you recently moved back?
Yeah, so I grew up in Texas, actually, Dallas area. And then whenever I was 9, well, I didn't grow up there, but the first 9 years of my life were in Texas. And then my mom left my father, and then we moved to Ohio. So we've been here for about 15 years now. So it has been a very different experience.
You're staying regional.
Yep. So it's been an adventure so far, but now I'm just hanging out in Ohio.
Okay. Hey, it's all right. We can do that. Steve, you're living in the countryside as well. I know it is countryside America, there, middle America.
We're like in the part
That's
of
right,
America
yeah.
where like if you walked outside and just kicked a football, us Midwesterners are just out to catch it. Like we're like a hop, skip, and a jump away. We're not that far. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, I drive my kid to school, and on the way, we have to literally watch out because ducks will cross within like 2 blocks of the school at the street.
Ducks?
And I don't believe ducks. And it's insane because there's like one sign where it says ducks crossing. And
wow.
I'll be damned if the things aren't crossing at that exact spot. It's like there's all this room. Like this ducks never cross at this duck crossing.
Wow.
And there they are, just waddling over into somebody's backyard over here from a park to there. So, and it's just filled with like cornfields and cows. And so you just get that lovely smell of manure every morning starting to hit from the sunrise. So, yeah, it's a different thing out here in the country.
That's fair enough. Well, I was giving look. I'm giving you two guys shit saying you live in small town, but I'm the guy that lives in the country with 1.4 million people in the whole country. So you want to talk about there's small towns and let's say small countries. So it's okay. I get you.
Yeah. So let's get into here with Mason. I wanted to actually Mason and I originally had first met in person at the most recent Retro World Expo, and he we had some great conversations, but I thought maybe we could start, if you want to, go through a little bit about your past, because he was actually a creator here on YouTube a while back, and I don't know, I mean, it was a pretty interesting little story, but just to set up how kind of you got into. Because I think that probably is a background as to how you got into what you're doing
definitely the
today.
setup. Yeah, that's a good part of the story. It's relevant. So I'm pulling up a post on Instagram because I showed Steve this. It's something that relates to the YouTube channel. I'll show in a minute. But so years ago, my dog had passed away, and I was like really, really upset. I was 12, 13. I was really depressed about it. first wave of depression in my life. It was just a thing. So like months go by, I'm still just in a drought. I got on Club Penguin back in the day from Disney. Just my old account, logged in, met this dude. He was like, hey, go to this chat room if you have a Nintendo 3DS. And I was like, numbers don't pop up on Club Penguin because that's like a safety issue, but it did there. I was like, okay, so I went there. I'm trying to really make the story short because it's a long story. But this guy,
fine. Good man, we got all day. Don't
cool.
worry,
Yeah,
go for it.
don't
Tell
have
us the
to-
story.
don't have
Tell us
to
the
go-
story.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
want to hear it.
anyway, so out of the 50 something servers on Club Penguin, you know, the one room out of the 30 that are in this server that I'm walking into, waddling, you know, I'm a penguin at the time. Some dude's message pops up with a number. I'm like, you can't use 1 through 9. Like, it just doesn't, like, it's like a kid typing their phone number. You just shouldn't do that. So, like, it's a safety issue, but it's like, if you have a 3DS, go to this chat room. And I'm like, first off, you're promoting a website that's not Club Penguin, and it's a random chat room, and you have a number in your message. Like, there's a reason this is popping up in my head. I come to find out, you know. So, me being curious, I'm like, I have a 3DS, and I had just gotten it, something to distract myself from my dog, you know. So, I went to this chat room. And there was this kid there named Lucas. Now, Lucas today is my best friend, lives in New Jersey. I've known him for 11 years now. But way back in the day, he had a YouTube channel. And so we didn't know each other. We didn't have any form of verification of identity, no video on this chat room, like totally risk it for the biscuit type of communication. So like we became really good friends, and like we got to talking. We started a Nintendo blog together. And at that point, he had a YouTube channel he had started. At the time, he was 10, so I was like 12, 13. He was like, you should start a YouTube channel. And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, you like Nintendo? I'm like, well, yeah, but is that what I would talk about? Like, that feels weird. I don't know. Not that it's weird. It just, I don't feel like I knew enough about the company or like whatever at that time to be,
Sure.
I guess, involved in that way. And so he's like, just try it, make one video. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I did one. My dad and I built the shelf. It was like, had all the power-ups on the side. We carved it out of wood. Like, we built it all. The shelves were like blocks from Mario, like the question block and like the exclamation points from Mario 64, etc. The favorite game ever. I love it. But it was a lot of references from like Mario. So it was fun. But that little hobby ended up being this room. Trying to get it to...
Oh, shit. Yeah, okay.
Turn the brightness up a little bit.
Starting from that one shelf.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
I
looks
can see
good.
that there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, it'll
So-
come through later, but later we get the high-res version getting it exported.
Yeah. So
you'll see it all.
Okay, cool. Well, it might be a little blurry. I don't know for sure, but basically, like, I ended up collecting. That became my shtick on YouTube for 8 years. I worked, or I guess back then I watched like a lot of gaming channels and stuff, get like review copies and stuff from Nintendo, and I'm like, I want to do that because like they got it for free and they got it early. It just sounded like a really cool perk. So that was kind of like my own little mission to get on YouTube. And it's like back then I was 14. I had the numbers in mind over the passion for it, which was a bad idea, you know? And that's like, I'll tell anybody that now. If you're doing it for the money, you're in it for the wrong reasons. But it's like, I really did get into like the collecting side of it though. So I worked at Taco Bell at that time, whenever I was like 16, 17 in that era. I'd go to a Toys R Us and wipe out an aisle of toys that I didn't. Sorry, if you have a dog, he's walking around.
No worries.
But I'd go raid a whole Toys R Us aisle and just swipe everything Nintendo logo on it that I didn't have and go make a pickups video after, you know. Because, like, I was living at home. I didn't have much to spend my money on. Like, that was my hobby. So it worked out.
Were you getting any money back? Were you getting any money back at that stage already?
From YouTube, no. So I had I wanted subscribers. I wanted to, it wasn't for the sake of having subscribers. I wanted to have an audience and like have a community built.
Sure.
But it's like,
That's okay, yeah.
but like at that point, I never paid attention to the analytics. I didn't know how to read them, or I didn't care rather. So it's like, I just made whatever popped in my head, whatever was relevant. It was like a news channel, but also like unboxings, etc. Like I wasn't trying to stay first in line to talk about this topic or whatever, but like I still wanted to give my opinion. So like I didn't pay attention to the relevance of topics or go in when the topic's hot, that kind of thing. I just kind of did stuff whenever I want. But that lasted for 8 years. In that time, I became a Nintendo ambassador where they started sending me the review copies and stuff. That was an experience. They kicked me out. That's another story. But basically, like, they're very strict, though. So
Sure. Okay.
it was just,
Right.
yeah, it was a bad time. But
What might be a minor thing
yeah,
for some reason
like,
is a big thing.
it's a
for
good
them.
story, too. I have it. But, you know, you tell me what you want to hear. I'll tell you. But
Let's get back to, we'll circle back to this one.
yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. So yeah, that was just that I started YouTube. I finished there 2 years ago. And at that point I made a tweet. I was like, hey, I'm done with YouTube. I made a video. I gave the channel to my friend. Actually, he's using it now. He's not that active on it currently, but he has plans to do that. So whatever.
About what year is this moment where you're making this change in your life?
Yeah,
what year
I
was this?
believe 2019, really late 2019, like
Something
December,
like
I think.
this.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
So
Okay.
at that point, I woke up one day after I hit 10K. I literally woke up the next day and I looked around in that room and I'm like surrounded by Mario stuff staring at me, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm done. I woke up the next day and I hit my goal and I was like, what's next? So at that point, I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'm still at that point. So 2019 happened. 2017, I mentioned this before we started the call. I had a really bad car wreck 5 years ago today, September 20th. So that's odd timing, but like for the sake of the story, like that happened. And that made me realize I was working at Taco Bell at the time, just starting out college for the associates, digital media. So I was at Taco Bell one day. And my mom came in and she was talking to me. I'm at the front counter, just sitting there with my little apron on and the hat. And she's like, hey, orientation's tonight, right? And I was like, yeah. And I wasn't planning on going though. It was just community college. I didn't really like the social aspect of it. And she's like, are you going to go? And I was like, I was afraid to tell her no, So she gave me hell for it. So like in the middle of talking while she's like screaming at me really subtly, but I'm like, people can hear you, mom, And so she was basically telling me, go, like, if you don't like it after a week, just stop, just at least try. So I knew if I didn't go that night, I'd be screwed. So I went, and after that, like I loved it. So I did that. But like during college, I had this car wreck on my way to class one day. I was 6 weeks ahead in my graphic design class, of course. And I was going to just go to hang out, and I crashed my car into a semi. So that day though, I realized like I was working at Taco Bell. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like in that moment for 3 seconds, I was doing 3 donuts on the interstate, realizing like I was going to die. That was the only time in my life I had ever faced death that close in the face. Like it seemed like 999% chance I was dead, because like I was going 75, slammed into the corner of a semi. My car got destroyed, windows busted, airbags, everything, the whole 9 yards. But I didn't have a scratch on me. And that day I was like, I got to do something different. I'm not happy, because like life could be over today. And that was a depressing thought to me. And I was like, what am I doing? Like Taco Bell was fine. But like, I also realized in that moment after that car crash happened, like there's so much potential that I'm wasting by just being at Taco Bell. And so at that point, I started college. I kept going there. That didn't really help me that much. All the things I've gotten into post-college, 95% of it hadn't had anything to do with college. Like it was just a good place for me to be. I met good people. Still hang out with them, go to lunch with my...
What skills? What were there some skills at least? Would you say like you learned how to use Photoshop better or something at college maybe?
So what I didn't realize was like it was an intro to media program, but I thought it was like a full-on here's the ropes of everything type of thing. But I walked in there knowing more about Photoshop than my professors, so that was really awkward. And I'm not trying to be like, it was just how it was. Like he would tell the class how to do things, and I'm like, well, Tim, you can do like Control-Alt-A for that. He's like, we're showing this way, Mason. And I'm like, okay, whatever, just trying to be helpful. But then like the other half of class, he'd have me go grade the left half of the room, and I'm like, because I'm just weeks ahead, like I was just there. But it was an intro to graphic design. It was Photoshop and Illustrator. They did photography, video editing, storytelling. They have a drone course now that I wasn't at the college for at that point because they just revamped the program. There was Adobe Dreamweaver, like web design.
Dang.
Yeah, it was bad. Adobe Animate.
Spitting out some .html files, maybe.
And then exactly. Yeah. But then there was like 3ds Max, 3D Studio Max, like for 3D modeling and stuff. We had a semester for. So it was a lot of like get your hands dirty in some different things and kind of find what sticks. But at that point, like I'm doing YouTube thumbnails and editing and all that. I wanted everything. I wanted to do everything. I still do. And like the fact that I can't spend every second of the day awake 24/7 learning all of this is a sad thought to me. Like I want to know how to do it all. And you
love it so much.
I do. And it's like I'm finding myself in a position now, like I just bought a house with YouTube thumbnail money. And it's like that's something I know a lot of people can't say. And it's like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, but still like, it's something that I have taken a lot of pride in the last few months because of that happening. Like, I just realized like I'm not where I want to be, but I'm much farther than I was. So I'm happy so far. I love it. But
it's a good story. It's so interesting how you get from there. The way that I think there's a story there about how a person can work as a creative, work as a freelancer, and actually build something and actually get somewhere with it. And
like at that,
there's nice bits to.
Yeah, like I guess I forgot this part of it. Whenever I realized I didn't want to do YouTube anymore after I hit the 10K, that day I woke up and tried to go to a retro game store and sell a bunch of my Nintendo plushies. I had 64 of them. And they were like, we'll give you $30. And I was like, I can't buy. So literally that night, I was like, how am I going to get rid of all this? I had a serial number 4 Mario Bros. Arcade cabinet in my room. So it's like, what am I going to do? The next day, some dude I know from YouTube messaged me. He's like, hey, would you be willing to sell your collection? And I was like,
okay,
yeah, I think I would, So, that's a story he stole.
So interesting how it happened like that, right? To remove those symbols. I mean, you could have just not, or you could have sold them off individually.
Yeah,
well, that was sort of fortune smiling down on you. Or
but
serendipitous.
The plot twist: he's not going to watch this. I don't think he knows this channel, but he stole me $3,000, so it's fun.
Yeah,
so, love it. I love it. Yeah. But anyway, that's what it is.
That's all its own thing.
It's a whole different thing.
It's a free. Well, anybody who does business like this, I'm sure Lewis could talk too about it. Being your own business owner and run business, there's always the unexpected expense.
And it's like
whatever the job could be. And
like at that point, I wasn't.
You don't get paid.
Yeah. Like at that point, I wasn't really doing any of this yet, like full time. So like we had an agreement. It was $7,500 what I got rid of all of it for, but he's paid X amount off so far. But at that point, I was like, my issue. This ties into like what I'm doing now. I am way too trusting to some people, unintentional. Like it's intentional because I want to have the bond there. I want you to know I trust you, but it's like. Also, like there are certain scenarios where I have to put my foot down, and I'm bad at that. So
this is a good segue, I think, into one of the things we want to talk about, like what it's like to live a creative and the things you need to do. So in your position, I mean, you're a one-man band, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out, like, because no one's truly a one. You've got a house, right? You got friends, you got people but do you have anyone you engage to help you with accounting?
No. So that is something that right now, I mean, I've advised with a lot of people, like Ralph Ronzia, Retro Ralph. We talk every day. And it's like, I talk to him a lot. He's like a brother to me at this point. Like we've known each other for 3.5 years almost now. So it's like at this point, I go hang out with him. I'll film stuff with him. And we just became really close. But like, he's the main guy I talk to about that. Cause it's like, I don't know. He's been around the block. Not that he's old, you know what I mean? But, he's, oh man, he's going to see this and be like, dude, no, yeah, I'm just playing. But basically like, he just has a lot of good financial advice from what I've gathered. My ex's dad actually owns a bunch of properties in town. And so we talk still about business things. He's got a lot of insight. So it's like, I hear things and I try to go in those practices, but like, for freelance, all I ever heard before I started this was keep a third of it for tax money. And I was like, man, that sounds like a lot. And so like, anyway, like last year I did my taxes. I guess earlier this year I did them for last year. And on PayPal last year I did okay. But like, this year it's much, it just keeps, it's like an upward chart. But I was sitting there and I told the guy, I'm like, yeah, I have like a lot here for tax money. Like if I have to pay it, I'm prepared, I guess. But like in that moment, I was like, man, like, I'm working my butt off here and I have to give a third of it away. Like that sounds stupid, but it's like, I'm not employed through somewhere. So it's like, I don't have the insurance or anything like that yet. I got to get figured out soon. But it's like, at this point, it's probably what's the applicable scenario where I am able to do that. But it's still like, it's a business at the end of the day. I got to get that eventually for myself. And if it stays one man band, then that's, it's my life. I got to protect that. So, but I had a third with me in the tax room and he was like, I had like, I don't even know how much, but ended up being like a third of what I had to pay for taxes because of my write-offs. I only had to pay like a few grand. And I was like, Yes. So like I realized that day, like spend money to make money is what I learned from that. But it's like
because of your tax system.
Well,
'Cause that's
so,
different, right?
More comes in, and you need to.
You got to spend
at the
a little
same
bit.
time.
Yeah.
Like on these big jobs, you've got to be reinvesting into new tools or whatever it could be.
And it's like I just moved into this house, so like all the things in this office, there's this mic stand. Ralph actually gave me this and the mic for Christmas last year. But like I have a desk here.
Gift.
I have a 34-inch monitor. I got iPad mounts and all this. The Polaroid wall. Steve, you're on it. You're on the Polaroid wall. You're up there, I think.
Yeah,
you're on the where are you at? Top left, I think. Yep.
I saw that. That's awesome.
But like everywhere I'm going.
Okay, but help me out. Okay, so but I'm Mr. European over here, right? So we do the taxes in the socialistic Eastern places. We do them different, right? So in my understanding of American tax, very broadly, is this, okay? You make a bunch of money every year, and then you have like a taxable total. And then you try to make deductibles. So you're like, hey, $1,000 because I've spent it on this fucking table. There's another 500 because I spent it on this chair, this office stuff. And you get this amount that you're taxed that down. And then there's a tax rate applied to that. And that tax rate is applied every year. And this process happens every year, right?
That's actually very impressive.
Yeah, I was gonna
for
say like
somebody
that's
who's not in the system.
I think he understands it better than I do.
That's what I was going to say. I was about to laugh at what you were going to try to say here, Lewis, and you actually did the opposite.
He's like working up a giggle over there, but it made sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you trying to become an accountant over here in the United States? Is that another gig you want to start?
I did.
Or he's moving
because I spent a few. I was probably just before the pandemic. I spent 3 weeks in America with my buddy Dieter in Atlanta that I grew up with, and I now live in Europe, run a business. He lives in Atlanta and runs a business. So we spent quite a bit of time. We're both like single business, or what do you say, sole business owners or whatever, small business owners. So we were just talking about taxes and comparing this. So this is how I know this about the American tax system, because I was funny. Like, oh, this is how it is, because the difference is. In Estonia, the tax system goes, so I'm a legal entity. It's a company, right? And the money has, let's say, $50,000 sitting in the bank account. And that's the money that's come in this year. Now, if I leave that money in the bank account, it is not taxed. So I can have, I get money in.
That's like, yeah, because I think you can do the same thing in the United States, but you have to register your business as like a corporation, and then there's all kinds of different ways that people in the United States do the same thing. It's where you're a corporation, you're limiting your liability at this point, but then you have to get into like legal stuff. Whereas I'm sure with Mason and like with my work, we're so sole proprietary on what we're doing. We're not like really expanding to the point where we need to be a corporation, because there's not that level of money coming in.
But I think also, Steve,
you don't have a lot of people.
The styles of like, what do you say? Like there's sole trader, and then there's like regular business, and then there's corporation, and like there's different size of business, right? And you guys need to be the right size for your tax market in America or whichever state you're in. So for me, this thing that I'm talking about with the not getting taxed every year thing, that's for like regular, easy to make companies. Like that is for example, the correct tax choice for just a regular guy as well. If you guys were on us, you'd have that thing. So the government does it to encourage growth, and you only essentially get taxed when money leaves the company. So if I want to give myself some extra, I need to pay 21% dividends tax. So I pay on the way out, but if I just leave it in the company, grow the company that way, then no taxes are on it. So interesting to hear about what kind of you're dealing with, and you've been able to work your tax. I know it's like that in Australia too, to work your tax system to just like get you in the right place.
Yeah, it's much, much different where we're basically getting all our money in, and then once a year we go and ledger that up. This is amount and like you say, you're putting this in, you're starting with a number, and then if you just didn't deduct anything, you could pay this huge tax bill if you want. But then you're going through and you're like, okay, in the United States, I drive all over the place, right?
Gotta ride
it's
up
like
the miles.
60 cents a mile. So I drove to Texas here in Texas and back. I drove to Connecticut and back, and I've driven to Tennessee a couple times, all work trips. So that's just, and
it's like
tax, a lot of tax, and that just comes off the bottom line. So at the end of the year, you're like, oh, I drove 8,000 miles this year for business. And then that's a 4 or 5, you get to take $4,000 off your bottom line. Okay. Yep. So that's just like, and that's one microcosm, but at the same time, I'm responsible to maintain documentation of the mileage for 7 years.
Logbook.
Yeah, and which isn't bad, but that's what you're obligated to do to be in business. Whereas, like, then if you work as an employee for somebody, you're not doing any of this stuff. Yep. You're just getting a set amount taken out of your paycheck, and then at the end of the year, you've either had too much taken out based on how much you're going to make, or not enough, and then you've got to pay in. And those are much more simple, but that's, again, a difference between a business owner and an employee. And just as you're saying, most business owners are looking for assets that can sit there and almost grow themselves in value. And like you say, you're not actually paying taxes till you cash out that asset, right? And hopefully that asset accrues value, and somehow you can make money from that accruement of value over time.
Sure. So, well, they want especially because the law was brought in when Estonia became re-independent a bit like over 25 years ago or so. So in modern kind of times, and they had this small economy, they wanted a jumpstart. So they said, no, don't pull your money out of companies, keep it in. We'll incentivize you. Anyway, before here's the thing, because I like the tax talk because I feel like I keep going, but I'm like, on that. So so that the way you, and I wanted to ask you some more questions, Mason, about the way you engage and what you do. So because I was going along, the reason we had this whole accountant's angle is because I just wanted to find out, like, what help do you get? What do you have to do yourself? People don't often factor in the administrative side of what has to happen. And also how, like, left brain, right brain, the creative work can be to the administrative work that you need to do. And you need to, as a creative, balance yourself throughout the day. You're not an on-off switch of creativity. You got to think about your own times and work with your thing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So then you've got to go do some invoices. That's so tell us about that a bit.
So basically, like, in my head, my whole system is like the marketing side and the design side. Like, once in a while, I make a tweet, hey, I made this banner or whatever. I don't do that as often as I should. I had my Twitter back. It's the same account I had with YouTube back in the day. I deleted all the tweets, started fresh pretty much. But like, I still had a bunch of Nintendo people there. So once I started doing this, I started losing hundreds of followers because I wasn't doing Mario stuff anymore. And it's like, I kind of maintained a level ground there overall. But like, at that point, I'm starting to promote my own stuff and all that. So the admin side of it, in my head, I literally only think about like how to promote myself and then the work I need to do to keep doing that. I guess that's
but then break down the work you need. But then break down, I mean, there's still creative work like opening Photoshop, let's say, and doing something there. Yeah. And then there's doing your accounts, I don't know, sending a package, doing all these other little things. And I guess maybe marketing is another one of those. But,
well, it's like
there are a lot of little things.
Like, I haven't done hardly any physical things, like in terms of shipments or anything like that, because all my market's been online. But like, I'm wanting to get into that, like trade show banners and like tablecloths, that kind of thing, just designing those. But like, there's so many things with what I'm doing already that it's so hard to juggle sometimes. Like, my work mainly is in Photoshop or Sketch. It's like a vector program. So I always have those two apps open. Like, I guess in my head, it's that simple. Like, I don't feel like I'm overthinking what I'm doing. I just kind of let things happen, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like I have much structure in that regard.
Okay. And you're okay with that? Or is there ever a situation where you're like, oh, I don't want to open the apps up because I just finished invoices and I'm a bit like brain dead, or the vice versa? No, it doesn't happen.
Like,
That's so interesting.
Like, the thing is, like,
you don't mind that switching.
Like, burnout is a serious thing. It happens. It really does. But like, I've learned in the last few months, especially, like, I have this room now. I gotta work in it. Anytime I'm in this room, I'm doing work, and it's like, it's just my productivity room, And so anytime I'm at this computer, like, I could be dead tired, about to fall asleep on this desk. Somebody's like, hey, need a thumbnail. I'm like, what do you want? I got you. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'll wake up. I'm trying to work like a 9 to 5. I'm trying to squeeze everything in those hours and like 40-hour week now because I can do that probably with the amount of work I'm getting. But it's just like I'm such a bad procrastinator. And that really is my Achilles heel with this because you have to be disciplined to do this full time solo. You know what I mean? Like I can't push this onto anybody else and say, hey, do this today. It's all me. Like, and this house is like my reminder, like, hey, get to work. You got things to pay for, you know? So it's like, that was also, it's been nice to have that as a kind of reminder. But
so talking about distractions then, you said, okay, you got that procrastinator gene. I'm sure that's something a lot of us can sympathize with. Sometimes procrastination sometimes it's just sitting on the couch scratching your balls because that's procrastinating. Or sometimes it can be with a small business. Oh, I'll just go look after the invoices. I know I got to do some invoices right now, or I know I just got to put those a little bit of accounting in. I'll do that first, and you can. That's got to be done too, sure. At some stage, but probably the design thing. But you don't seem to even come across that too much. You're okay when you're in the room. It's creativity.
I try to be, but like in this room too, I procrastinate. Like I try to make this the place to get things done, but like I do procrastinate once in a while. You know, like so I talk to all my clients, customers, whatever you want to call them. Friends mainly is what I usually use, but it's like because that's the more important thing here to me. It's like the bonds that the wall. I'm not putting these people on the wall because they gave me $1. Like they're all friends now. Like it's like an adventure, It's life's a journey. But like,
it's nice.
So, I guess I don't know. I'm trying to think about procrastination there in that regard. Like I can look at this wall and be like, oh, that was a fun day. I wonder how that person's doing. I'll go to Twitter, check this. Oh, they have a new YouTube video. Let me watch it. And I'm like, oh, this was so good. Oh, they recommended. That's interesting. I'll totally get sidetracked. But like, it's totally like a derailing train until I'm like, okay, let's steer it back, But like, invoice in that regard, like typically one day a month, I have like 5 or 6 people roughly that I do monthly invoicing for that pay monthly for thumbnails and stuff. Some of the bigger creators I work with. So like I'll do their stuff like on the 30th, 31st of each month, invoice of the following day. But like that's the only day for accounting that I have. But like once in a while, like I'll do local stuff like at my college. I still freelance there sometimes. They give me like video projects and stuff they want done because they don't have much marketing there. Like they do, but like they don't want to do it. They'll just outsource. So I worked there in the college in their marketing department for the 4 semesters of college that I was there for. I think it was actually 3 of them, but I got in with them, and so I still go to lunch and hang out with them. So it's like anytime they need things, sometimes I'll just reach out for drone work or video, whatever. But like when I'm in that mode, I'm somewhere. I'm not sitting behind a desk, and I have to be on a mission. So it's like I can focus. But like it really just depends on the day, how my week's been, because it used to be. People would reach out for a thumbnail and literally like my flow, it took me an hour back in the day for thumbnails and stuff, like for my own channel. But then like I learned keyboard shortcuts and like etc. I've really gotten the flow optimized, like almost as good as it can possibly be, I think. And for myself anyway. So I created
that launches. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that launches us really nicely into the craft of the creator. And another stereotype, tropey thing that I've encountered in my time, if I'm doing stand-up comedy, it's 25 minutes at someone's party, and it'll be like, $400 for 20 minutes. I wish I got paid $400 for 20 minutes. And that attitude of like, well, it's just the logo. Why does it cost X amount? It's just the thing. I can open Photoshop too. But it's you're paying for the skill of the tradesman. You're paying for the skill of the person who's learnt the hotkeys. And yes, it doesn't take me 24 hours to make that because I've practiced this. Guess what, motherfucker? I'm real good at it.
And it's like,
yeah.
Like with Ralph, for example, he reached out, like I said, almost 3.5 years ago now. His thumbnails back then, they needed help a little bit, but like he was doing them himself, and like I give him credit, he was doing them fine, but he felt like he wanted an upgrade, so I said okay. At that point, I didn't realize it would turn into this because he opened a lot of the doors between him and Console Kits. I worked with Ad Games with Console Kits couple years ago. So like I've really gotten my foot into the arcade corner, especially on YouTube. You know, as you mentioned earlier, like I've worked for a lot of the creators in this space, whether that's branding or thumbnails. You know, I know a lot of them, and it's I'm kind of like a behind the scenes little Photoshop ninja happening over here somewhere. But it's like back then, like looking 3 years ago to now, there's such a difference in my style. Like I've just evolved it. And it's like there's people that message me and they're like, hey, I hope you don't care. I took a lot of heavy inspo from your thumbnails. And I'm like, whatever. You know, it's like it's fine. But it's like at some point, like I guess I'll say this here, like I kind of feel like that's my look. You know, it's like I feel like it's hard to make 5 different thumbnails about the same arcade 1-up cabinet that just got announced. But like especially with my look on it, you know, it's hard to like either you think I made it or I made it. Like if to a certain few creators, like I've had
it's good.
It's flattery,
style.
Yeah, and it's like, but like I feel like everybody needs their own because like that's their mark, you know. Like I know a lot of mine tend to maybe run together to some people, but like it's still like the same aesthetic. It's punchy in your face. That's my goal. So it's like when I see other people doing that, like I could name drop somebody here. I don't want to do that, but anyway, somebody on YouTube, a pretty decent size arcade 1-up YouTuber, home arcade space anyway. Somebody messaged me and they're like, hey, do you do his thumbnails or does he just try to copy your style? And I'm like, I don't do them. Like, but it's like people can look at channels and like see my flair there. And it's like, I'm glad that that's kind of translated because it's like, I'm glad people like it. But like also like, you know, it's hard again to make the retro 80s vibe really punchy in your face look different than a punchy 80s whatever, like the neons and all that. It's hard to get away from that, I will say. But it's like, you know, I'm digressing. But anyway, like, I forget where we were talking about, but yeah.
I like that you've got this style of being a designer, and it's just your choice as an artist. That when you look at your work, we can see it's Mason's work, right? Like, and that's cool.
I appreciate that.
And I think that also. Maybe now there's association. But anyway, you've got a style. And I work with other graphic designers, very good graphic designers that I respect. But they'll make you anything. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like they don't have a style. No, that's their thing, and they're so professional that they can make any style and do their own thing. And that's where when one is engaging a freelancer or a creative to make something, you could understand there could be 2 styles of that, and we come to you because you like your style, you're known for that, I like it, let's do it. And people need to understand the creative person that they're working with and what is their way of doing that.
Like I guess also we were on the idea that the optimization of my flow, we were talking about that. I totally got away from that though, so I apologize, but I'll get back to that right now. So basically like you were saying though, like it's so hard. Like I haven't really ever had that problem up until recent. Like I'm getting random people from like a couple years ago that come back for a new channel they're doing or whatever, and like prices are different now because like I'm busy. The world is expensive today, more than it was a year and a half ago, you know. And you know, PayPal is being PayPal, like they're cracking down on things. So like I've had to adjust prices a bit, and general business, I guess, you know, it's all factoring into a little bit higher prices than I used to have. But it's like like I said earlier, I've gotten the flow for my own style down so well that I can get stuff done. If you like, I've had people message me with 40 thumbnails. They want me to redo the rest of their videos before they met me. They say, hey, do 40 thumbnails. I don't, do them in the month or whatever. They'll be done that night. Because I will sit there for hours and hours and do them until they're done. Like it is, once I have a look down, I'll just, and it's like people sit there and they're like, okay, this could have taken me 4 days, day and night. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Pay up. Not literally, but it's like
absolutely. Yeah. What's it worth? Eventually,
and it's
it's better to pay someone to do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Which we can kind of transition. I know where I could talk to just my own.
Tell us about your experience.
Because
please.
Forever, I've always made my own thumbnails, and that was like 300 and I don't know 60 videos or something, and it's always. I always feel like it's such a pain in the ass, really, because you put so much effort into something and then just trying to describe it with the right title and then thumbnail becomes its own thing, and then you're trying to figure out a style of your own and what works, what doesn't. Sometimes, And that takes a ton of time just to even figure out on your own. And at the same time, I've got nowhere near the skills or even the ability to take the time to learn a third of the skills is what Mason could offer.
Well, thank you, man.
I could tell.
Don't knock yourself down, though.
Seriously. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to say that my thumbnails were terrible. They weren't awful or anything, I don't think. Like the last couple years, but at the same time, personally, I was tired of spending that extra time on wondering about it, and then I just reached out to you because my experiences were seeing your work with Bob at Retro RGB more than anything else, to be honest. And then, of course, I could tell that you'd worked with Justin a lot, and which is cool because I could see that stylistic thing. And finally, when I ran into you and we talked, I think the biggest hurdle for people like me and even wondering was like, well, what's it really cost to get this done? You're kind of like thinking in your head, well, I don't really know what's a fair rate. And I'll be honest with you, even with after your increases, and you're welcome to say anything you want to about your rates right now or not. It doesn't matter because I realize some of that's got to be different depending on how big of an audience might be or something. Yeah. But it was definitely not a big charge for me to be able to like offset that. I mean, again, it's something that I would normally have to spend a bunch of energy thinking about, either in my head passively as I was doing the video or whatever. Now I can kind of just think of a couple things and then hand it off to you and let, like, it's a weird thing to get started, but I think once you get over the hurdle of actually doing it, if you are creating something and it's within, you want to invest extra, that's a perfect spot to invest into if you don't have the skill.
And it's like,
not that expensive.
Right. Like I've seen, for example, John Riggs, he made a tweet. No, it wasn't John Riggs. He commented on this. Somebody made a tweet one day. This is like 2 weeks ago. And it was saying like, I don't understand why people outsource editing or thumbnails or whatever to people because it's called YouTube, whatever. But like John Riggs commented, he's like, well, I'd like to think like it can still be your style. It can still be it's your thing. It's your vision still being handed off. Like, what's wrong with it? And it's like, I see tweets like that sometimes, and I'm just like, I know that's not intended to like hurt people like me because it's like, it's just somebody's opinion, and that's not going to affect my business. But it's like at the same time, like, I feel like people really devalue the work that goes into it. Like, there is a lot of leeway when it comes to a design. Like, it's very subjective. So either you like it or you hate it or whatever. But it's like some people, like I'll do cold calls. That's how I've gotten a good bit of the people I work with. And like just straight emailing. That's part of, earlier I forgot to tell you that. I do that once in a while. So basically like some people, like they come to me because they hate the process or it takes them too much time or they don't want to think about it or whatever, or they just feel like their skills aren't where they want them to be for their channel representation. And it's like, I'll handle any of that. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll do whatever. Like, I work with people that have like, starting out literally from 0 to people like 3 million. So it's like, there's just so many different, a lot of them are in like the home arcade space / gaming, etc. But then there's a couple food channels I work for that are more established. And it's like, I'm trying to really reach out to other audiences. Like actually yesterday, somebody that played, I don't want to butcher his name because I don't know how to pronounce it. He played in the NFL for 7 years for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that was fun. I got to, he messaged me and he's like, hey, somebody that I had never met. I don't know who this person was. They tagged me in a tweet on Twitter responding to him because he's like, hey, I need a thumbnail guy. This dude's like, hey, check out Mason Conrad. He's got references. So I tweeted not knowing who it was. I'm like, hey, DM me, whatever. He DMs me and he's verified. I'm like, who is this guy? So I clicked and he's like 7-year NFL vet. I'm like, okay, like that's fun. But it's like the amount of, this guy just has a YouTube channel. He talks about fantasy football and stuff. And it's like, I'm trying to just get my foot in every door I can. Cause it's like, the style translates, but also like it's my look. But like, if you see a similar thing between like a gaming video or an NFL video, that's not the same audience. So like,
sure,
it can still be the same aesthetic. And it's like, that's something I've had to run into lately is like, in regards to like the idea about other styles and stuff. I could sit and figure that out. But like at this point, it's so ingrained in my brain just to make it my look that it's like.
You should. Going back to that comment, it was some tweet or video, whatever, that John Riggs commented on. And so if I understood correctly, the original commenter is essentially saying, I can't outsource my thumbnail. I can't outsource my editing. I can't outsource that because then it's not me.
That's how I interpreted it. Yes,
mine, which is a very interesting way to look.
An interesting take.
It's an interesting take. Now I can imagine maybe a painter, someone who works, a writer. Even a writer has somebody else. But then I think about other artists. I think about, I don't know, Steven Spielberg. He doesn't do everything. The part of if you want to create any art that transcends yourself, maybe you can do everything to a certain level. But after that, the skill of an artist is not just painting a brush or writing a line. It's communicating your vision to those other people that you work with and knowing that they understand and they interpret and they maybe put their own little twin flair on it as well. Yes, guess what? It's a collaboration at something. And it's so, I just think that person has never sort of really thought about the way art should grow and the way art can be bigger than all of us. But you have to communicate your vision, and that's artistic too. So if I'm telling you about my thumbnail, we've got to find some level.
You message me.
Maybe I can just
yeah. Like the other day, you're like, I want to give a. Well, you're I guess I don't know how to word this. Like you're wanting to give attention to the big stage in your thumbnail you sent me. So it's like, in my head, I'm like, how do I maximize? It's like highlight you, blah, blah, shadow, whatever. But like then it just looks in my head like it looks more whatever. But like, I'm sorry, I'm like all whatever today. Like I'm just like my brain just going. But basically, like it's all so subjective. So it's like either you like the style or you don't, and if you don't, that's totally okay. It's not for you, and that's fine. But like, it was an interesting tweet though. I just thought it was fun, but something to kind of engage with.
It's a very narrow-sighted opinion because anybody who does anything in business and wants to be successful, it is almost. I mean, if you like, there's always got to be somebody else there helping you almost, no matter what you're doing. Even like you're talking about, Lewis, the guy who's the extremely talented artist. Well, if that guy's the extremely talented artist, he ends up in like a shack in the middle of the woods painting, and nobody appreciates any of his art till after he's dead. Someone comes along and finds it and decides to market it, okay? Because he had to have somebody. If he wants to be successful at what he's doing, he has to have somebody go in and set up a studio, set up some way to display all this stuff, and he's not going to go, well, I'll just do it all, and be the best at it if he's going to be the best at it. You're not going to know everything about each one of these topics, and it's fine to think of ways of what can I do to that. Like, again, this is a stepping stone, and what Mason's offering is, they're like, well, this is something that I'm not great at, but I can still convey my message. And you're like, we're directing him how we want. We don't just say, hey, Mason, my name's Steve, this is my channel, and I just need a thumbnail, man, just send me one.
People do that though.
Here you go.
Yeah.
So this is a good segue to how much input do you need? And I was really interested when I engaged you, Mason, to ask like, well, how much do you want? Do you want me to give you a spiel, a whole thing, or do you want nothing? Or do you view it your thing to just look at my work and come up with your own interpretation? So let's talk about that. What do you want from clients? What do you get? What is a lot, a little?
Yeah. So like,
let's go down that alley.
Basically what you just said is all the above. Like I will have people that message me just a title and they say, run with it. And then I'll go find the assets, what I think is relevant and makes enough sense. Or like, Steve, you sent me a picture of some of your stuff for your video the other day. So like, then I'll highlight what's in that picture in my head, like the focal point, like how do I, bring attention to this topic more than just what the photo is saying. It's like, you have to draw attention somehow to the eye. So in my head, that's what I'm deciphering. Like, what is the best way to go about that? So some people, I usually let people decide, like if they'd rather tell me, like, I have somebody that literally sends me like 15 pictures. He's like, fit everything in there. And I'm like, you really think this is worth the time, man? Like, they're not even like PNG files or whatever. So I have to crop them all out. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, but you know, it's whatever.
Fine,
but like, but then there's people that
and you
send
don't
me,
mind doing that as an artist.
No,
yeah, you don't
no.
mind doing that as a
and
creative.
it's like,
That's okay.
you know, but like on the note of like charging people because based on channel audiences or whatever, it's all the same. Because like,
Oh,
but
really?
like even like that, like I will say, I'm not gonna name drop because I don't want them to be like sad. It's not that I dislike working with them. It's that it's a lot to take on for one thumbnail. But like because we've had a working relationship, etc. Like I don't want to shy away from it because it's a challenge. You know, it's like mental challenge more than anything. Like I can crop it out all day and make it like a 7-hour process. But at the end of the day, my mission is to keep the people happy. And it's like, that keeps me happy. And it's like, I consider this person a friend. So it's like, I'm not going to tell them, hey, don't do that. You know what I mean? So like, you can tell me as much as you want me to do or as little. And, you know, you're paying the same basically. But yeah, like it is kind of like it is a challenge. That's the way to word that part. But like the people that send me nothing, they're like, hey, I have a video. It's an unboxing for this thing. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I'll do whatever. It's in my style. And like, I'll add what it's basically like the gaming channel.
Do you take the video? Do you pick through the video even
Sometimes.
and pick out some stills or something?
Like, so
Sometimes,
I work with Dame Drops and Badlands Chugs. Dame Drops has a Netflix show and he has a bunch of food reviews on his YouTube channel. That's what he does. And the Badlands chugs everything. He's a competitive eater, ranked number 23 in the world. And like they're both such cool people. And those were both.
That dude just cracks me up. Both those guys. I just got fed a video of them like chugging like blue soda.
Yeah.
You know, out of a random item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in
and
like
it's
a minute,
like
a gallon.
yeah, it's crazy. He's wild, man. Seeing that in person is a different story. But like for them, like I'll go through their thing is they're a really interesting duo. Not even duo, but just their channels separately are very interesting to work with because for years their brand was just the still thumbnail YouTube would pick. So I reached out to Dame Drops. You know, back then he had like 1 million, I think. When I was 14, he's at like 1.6 or something now. I was in his Skype call years ago with my friend, and we're like, hey, see if Dame Drops can follow me on Twitter. So I tweeted him. I said, hey, follow my friend, whatever. He did. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want him to follow me. So then we reversed it, and he had him follow me back. He never unfollowed me. So January of last year, I messaged him on Twitter, and I'm like, hey, sorry for this message right here where I'm fangirling from 2015. But I was like, hi, I do graphic design. You need thumbnails. I want to make them. Let's talk. So immediately he was like, let's do it. I was like, wow. So, but because of that, like prior, he hadn't had a thumbnail guy for years. So him and Badlands Chugs, like both of them have YouTube's algorithm just sees their still photo from their upload, and that's what people recognize. And so doing thumbnails for them, we haven't ever actually discussed this, but I've picked up on it over the last year and a half, how it's working. Like the thumbnails don't actually help them. Like, which is interesting because like some people just want the aesthetic for it or whatever, but like they'll wait until, because Dame Drops wants the aesthetic of the channel there, like of the thumbnails and stuff, because it's consistent now, and he'll usually publish it, let it do its thing. Once it dies down, then he'll add the thumbnail, which is like, it's an interesting take, but like their faces became their brand. So whenever you throw in like, you know, the camera for Badlands Chugs, like it's a picture of a man at a table with a bunch of drinks. Now, when you throw in the subject, change the colors on it a little bit to make it pop more, add the giant Pepsi logo and the Pepsi cans that he's chugging, you know, text about a 2-liter chug, whatever, people don't see that and they think of him. It's just a different look on his channel that people aren't used to. So, you know, that guy has 3 million subscribers. So it's like you have that many people that are just not really passing up the video, but not recognizing that it's somebody they watch consistently. So typically they'll let their videos run and do their thing on their own and then add the thumbnail after, which is like, it just really depends. Like whenever you go that long without the brand there, how do you reestablish it?
But then why even add a thumbnail then?
For
why
the
does he
aesthetic,
even
I
need one
guess.
After a certain number of
I mean, I guess he doesn't, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't know, but
I think it's when you go back maybe and like you click on the channel.
yeah,
And
like if you go to
then
like the videos, you see all the thumbnails.
You go to
there.
like the channel and then it looks like a whole real kind of professional deal, as opposed to if it's just the, like you
I
said,
wonder if it's,
just the thumbnails, because what they're doing is they're they're feeding their main audience that's coming up and watching the stuff when it hits in the first week, and the big 90% of your audience on most stuff is going to watch within a week or something, maybe 2 weeks. And so after that point, it's like, well, what do you do to attract the new audience members? Or you look like an established brand, right? You look like an established brand then to advertisers who find your videos, and then they go, hey, check out this YouTube channel. And you go back and you look and you see that all the thumbnails are updated to, like you say, have a consistent look. Because I think that's what a lot of people do, is you want to have a consistent look for your audience. And that's one of the things that I want to kind of just not totally abandon from what I did and have. Because I think there's elements there of that work with the audience that they relate to. And at the same time, you can't just like completely mix it up.
Right.
Because it's the same thing. You're going to confuse people. They're not going to realize it's a video from you.
Yeah.
Can there be a transition? I was wondering, and this is wild speculation on my behalf, because I think Steve put it very, very, and he said all the things I was going to say, but I was also wondering, could they be deliberately even trying to pull their old audience into the new brand? And they know that's going to take some time. And why are they doing it? Because what Steve said, well, you got to have a brand. We got to have something. We can't just be I don't know. You got how many millions of subscribers? That's money. And some marketer is not telling them to eventually, hey, put some graphics. Maybe you want some graphics, guys.
It's an interesting take,
So anyway.
Yeah.
What about for you, Steve? Maybe you've got to have this transition plan.
Well, that's kind of what I've been thinking of with working with Mason, because at the same time, it's like I've got to think of an idea. I know how my videos work, whereas I know some of them are going to get the majority of the audience that shows up to every video, but they're not going to do like great, like they're not going to get picked up by algorithm. I'll get a few new views on them, but it's not, it's going to hit its audience and it'll sit there. But then there's other videos that, hit the larger audience. And I want to think of the ways to kind of expand upon what, like, no joke. I mean, when I come up with a big CRT video, it's going to have the big CRT screen in it somewhere.
Yeah.
So that still needs to be an emphasis, and I'll probably still have my logo in the corner or something. And then it's just, what other creative elements do we want to work with, add that to make that look like it's something more special than just what I do, which was just take a picture, and touch it up a little bit. Just take a picture, and sometimes just literally from the video, and then put a border and touch it up, and that's it. And then add some over font.
But
right?
sometimes that works
my
for
whole
people.
trick. Right, saying I have no idea. So like my workflow compared to what Mason does is so stupid and like backwards. It only makes sense to me, and it's how I could do what I had done, but it's so bad that it's like it's unimprovable, right? Like I was taking a photo and just using it in stupid Windows photo editor, crop it, balance it a little bit, and then I would take that photo in like 3D editor, add my logo and my crop or my outline of the video, and then I had to take it again and put it into PowerPoint.
Oh my!
Because that's the only place I could get good. I could only get good lettering, right? I could only get good 3D lettering in PowerPoint, and then so that's the stupid stuff I had, and then I would save that PowerPoint slide, and that would be my thumbnail.
It's funny you mentioned that though, because I have a similar workflow for something I do. So basically, like with After Effects. So sometimes, like for like Chasing Nostalgia on Ralph's channel, if you've ever watched that or whatever, like we'll have like these animated graphics here and there or whatever. I do this thing. It's called Saber. It's a plugin from Video Copilot on After Effects. So you download it. You can like trace things in laser, whatever, just to like kind of a thin moving line animated. If it's like 3D, it'll have all the vertices highlighted and you can see it all. Like it's really cool. Basically, to do that, you have to have a solid layer in After Effects, as far as I know. I'm not super well versed there yet, but I'm working on it. But then it's like you have to have the outline from Illustrator. I hate Illustrator. So I use Sketch, which is a different vector program. So I'll make my shapes in Sketch, and then I'll get the outlines from that, copy that, open Illustrator. That's the only time I use Illustrator, by the way. I'll paste it in, direct selection tool, highlight the vertices, copy those, and from there, After Effects can read it if it's another Adobe, like from another vector like that. So I'll drop the vector copy from Illustrator into After Effects, and then I can work on it. But it's like, you could do that easily. In After Effects, I'm sure there's a way. I just don't have the time right now to figure that out. So, yeah, like whatever works for people, you know? I mean,
right. How does it work, Mason? It's one thing to say, like, okay, you're taking your time or a job takes a long time. But what about those jobs where there's many revisions from the customer?
Yeah,
and
those are
I
fun.
would say from early on, I learned. I had my first graphic designer that I was working with wouldn't pull punches and told me honest, many direct things. And I kind of learned when working with her that what I had to learn how to get better to give you my specifications, to tell you what I want, to be as precise as possible. And then after that, I will ask for one revision, and then after that, we're done. And that was sort of our thing that we'd worked on. I got one chance, maybe two if I went back and explained. And I think broadly, though, it's a reasonable plan, you know, to say, like, I'm going to do a good job. Look, maybe I didn't, or maybe I specifically, you know, maybe look, hey, Mason, I'm not quite sure on this one, just flagging that, you know, could be. But to not do that picky thing, like, why didn't you say all those things earlier on? That must be so frustrating sometimes.
So I've had a few people in the last, there's a few that pop in my head immediately when you talk about that. One of them, I'm not going to do any name drops for this kind of stuff because, like, we're good now.
Of course,
but, like,
yeah.
you know,
We'll stand positive.
there's always been some sort of disconnect in communication sometimes and things like that. Because it's like whenever you're using an artist for stuff, like, you know, I think a lot of people forget that they're not the only client you have, you know? And so therefore, like, oh, you're just on my time. I need 800 changes. Like, and it gets really frustrating, admittedly. Like, there are times where it's like, I just want to throw my laptop out the window, but I'm like, nah, I love this though. Like, I wouldn't do that, you know? But like, there is a guy I did a rebrand for one time who, he sent me just a few, he told me some ideas he wanted in his banner. I said, okay. I built it. I loved how it turned out. Like, one of my favorites I had made at that point. And he said, can you make it like pretty though? And I was like, okay, sure. Like, whenever I make things and I'm like that stoked on it at this point, I'm like, man, I'm improving. You know what I mean? Like, when I get that excited about things, like, I have my style, but if I can elevate that in any way, I'm like, this is looking sick. And so I sent it back to him and he said that. And I was like, okay. So basically what happened was I remade this banner 8 times, a banner for a YouTube channel. Now, that's different fonts, different social icons, different style to those, all this stuff, different games in the background, that kind of thing. And it was like, by the end of the day, the crappy part was I was charging a flat rate for that. At that point, banners were just $40 flat. Nothing, you know. So this dude was just using my time, and I told him respectfully, I'm like, you know, what can I do to, you know, I'm never gonna be that asshole to people. Like, I can't. I'm not like that. So I feel like I really test my patience, which is good, but also, like, sometimes bad because I'm a bottle. I don't erupt. I just let it build up. But basically, like, I told him, like, hey, you know, what else can I do to make this, you know, how you want it? Like, I'd love to get this wrapped up for you to put on your channel. But, like, in my head, too, I'm like, because I have other things to work on, you know. And I told them this was, like, draft 6 probably. I was like, you know, I just have some other projects I've been doing, too, so I'm trying to make sure I have enough time to allocate to them. Are you rushing me? And I'm like, bro, I've been at this for 6 hours. Yes, I am. Now I am, you know, like... But I told him, like, no, I'm not trying to rush you, man. I'm just saying, like, you know, you got to understand, like, I'm charging a flat rate for this. So, like, this isn't really starting to be worth the time. And it's like, you know, I worked at Taco Bell. They were paying, like, $8-10 an hour at that point. And it's like, I've done pretty okay for myself in this area. I can't complain. But it's like, that only happens if I can stick to that, you know, schedule pretty much. And, like, at that point, I'm working for Taco Bell money again almost. And I'm like, I made a promise to myself once I stepped out of those doors, I would never go back to that. Because I worked at Jimmy John's for a while I was at the college. But, like, I'm the dependable guy that's going to come in if you call out, you know, because I can't say no. I'm bad at that. So, like, the whole can't say no thing translates into this, too. Because this guy's like, hey, change it to this. And I didn't want this. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like there are people that know exactly what they want, but they say, hey, run with it. And then whenever you don't give them that, they're like, why didn't you do it this way? And I'm like, You didn't say.
That's because I think that's part of the deal of engaging such a creative person is I've got to give you my instructions. Look, if something's really wrong or really off,
right.
Okay. But then, especially if you come back and go, yo, Mason, clearly I didn't communicate my vision to you. Looks like trash. I need it done, But then I've got to accept the next one. That's the kind of deal. Well, if I want you, and even a small revision, I feel like I have to now try. Otherwise, why the fuck am I working with you if I'm not trusting you to do that? Especially when you're a creative who's known for his style. So anyway, go Steve.
So just to also add to this, Mason is charging a rate where if you're going to be that kind of a jerk, you should buy the thumbnail and then look at it and then go get somebody else to make you one and pick the best one if you don't really like it. It's not like it's like going and getting a damn KFC meal, Come on. You're going to go throw the chicken back in their face and tell them it was trash? It was trash, whatever. It's like no, and that's a bad comparison.
He's not saying
I know. I get what you're saying.
But you're
like
valuable.
I asked for the extra crispy fry.
It's a value.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the heck out of here, man.
Right.
It's like you can't go start eating your chicken and I want this a little bit fried, a little bit more there.
Yeah.
It's like
I actually want a creative job out of you. I want you, I'm asking you to do creative work.
And that's a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, hey, I like your style. Like this guy from the NFL, he's like, hey, I like your look that, I sent on the portfolio. He's like, I like this. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's a lot of the draw people have because it's like, I feel like in terms of aesthetics, I at least have the eye-catching thing there. I have that going. I think that's kind of my own shtick. Not that nobody else has that. But like in terms of like the home arcade stuff, like I have my own look for it. And I think people, like you said, when you see my stuff. But like this thumbnail stuff, like that guy forced me to rethink my entire pricing strategy, But like that's the best part about this. Like I got something good out of it.
Okay.
And it was like, it is a way to branch out and understand the business tactics that I need to have to better serve everybody else. But it's like you said, if you come to me for the style though, and I give you that style, basically the banner was like really neon. It was a gaming channel, really neon, punchy colors, whatever. He was like, it just needs to be appealing to the eye though. And I'm like, this is like eye candy to me. I love this, Okay. It ended up being like.
So how did it end with this guy? How did it end with
really
this guy?
bad feedback.
Without being super revealing, it ended up pretty dull colors and not what I would have made originally ever. But he was like,
and then after 8 tries, you said, or kind of 8
about 8,
turns, something like this. Something like this. And did you then, based off you were just saying, I've got to learn, these are the experiences that help me grow. So do you just keep this person as a customer afterwards?
Yeah. Yep. I do. Once in a while, he'll reach out.
And and is the process easier than this?
Yeah. Yeah. I told him eventually, once I rethought the thumbnail pricing and everything, I did probably 30 or 40 thumbnails for him in one go. But he was pretty picky, and that's okay. I'm not saying I'm very open and welcome to revisions. If it's not what you want it to be, tell me. That's totally okay. But whenever it comes to, I am slaving away for nothing at this point, whenever the work gets put in and whatever, typically an hour thumbnail for me doesn't exist anymore because I've gotten the flow down. And it's there are people who, again, they think it takes them 3 hours. They can just use an hour is fine. You know what I mean? So it's if you're that picky, like you said, there's got to be another way for you to be able to communicate this better, And it's if you told me 5 changes you want in one go, I'm counting that as one revision. I'm not going to count you as 5 different things, but I'll do this thing for somebody I mentioned earlier, actually, I just didn't name drop. So the flow, I have it down, right? So he sends me 15 pictures for this thumbnail. I'm working on it, just having my own good old fun. He messages me midway through and he's like, hey, I don't want this person there anymore. I want you to replace it with this one. And it's then I'll go back after I finish the thumbnail and send it to him because I save it. I do it all in one go usually. And I see that and I'm like, here's what I had done, not to say hey, feel bad for me, but it's tell me everything you want at the start. And it's if you're going to change your mind, do that before you reach out to me. And it's because that really creates a lot of delay in you receiving the product at the end of the day. Like, that's going to take me more time to go back if I don't have enough undos to get that person out after I flatten the image, you know? Like, it's a whole thing. And like you said, I don't feel like people really acknowledge the amount of time it can take. But that's like, you know, mainly banners are the typical thing. But like, I'm working with a channel right now currently. Once in a while, like, actually, it's Game Explain on YouTube. They have, it's a giant Nintendo channel. And I used to watch, like, the funny thing is, like, I used to watch all these people as a teenager, and now I just work for them, which is like awesome. But it's like, these guys, they're so cool, like really good gaming, like Nintendo news back then. I would like up all night watching their stuff because they're like very good at like analysis for game trailers and that kind of stuff. They're really fun. But anyway, so I met with the owner of the channel at E3 in 2018. He's a really cool guy. I reached out 2 summers ago and I said, hey, if you ever need thumbnails, I'm doing this now. So here's my style. I didn't have much to show for it at that point besides my own channel. But like with Nintendo channels, I make what I would have made for myself at this point. You know what I mean? If I were still doing a Nintendo channel, here's what it would look like. So I kind of transcend that old style back into this, which is fun. But anyway, so Game Explain. There was a thumbnail they needed. So they're a breaking Nintendo news channel. Like, as it happens, like, he can message you right now and be like, hey, I need a thumbnail. Are you available? And if I say, like, yeah, like, I can be there in, like, 10 minutes, he's like, oh, sorry, we're going to have the video up. Like, fast. On the ball, you have to be ready. And it's, like, it's a breaking news channel. Like, they're going to try to be first, and I get that. But last month, they ordered, I think, 45 thumbnails or so, give or take. I think it was closer to, like, 40. But, like, that paid my mortgage. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like, I'm really trying, like, they pay monthly. So it's like, it's really fun for me to, I like to amass as many monthly people as I can. Cause it's like people that pay through the month is totally fine too. But like at the first of each month, it's like payday for me basically. Cause that's like invoice day. Yeah, sure. So it's like, I'm realizing there are certain aspects to building that going, whatever. But anyway, so my point is Game Explained for a video last month. They asked for a thumbnail. It was a comparison video between this game and this game. This track from Mario Kart took 15 tries to get it right. 15. And it's stuff like move it down 10 pixels or, you know, put this word on this line or, you know, maybe we should take away the slash in the middle to go, you know, maybe it's more aesthetically pleasing if we move this person on this side of the other, you know, stuff like that. Like, and this is the channel that I originally based my style on for the reference. I love their thumbnails. Over time, I kind of shifted into my own look, but like, you know, it got very frustrating, but it's like, at the end of the day, he's a very nice guy. I'm not going to say, hey, you know, but again, I have to, he also tells me too, he's like, charge me overtime if you need to. And I'm like, he's
right.
fine.
That's a great point about respect. Like, and you can do it as well. Are you showing respect? Like the other guy, from the way you kind of made it sound, he didn't sort of at least understand consciously the respect for your time, for your work, where, yeah, if you can feel that the client gets it, look, I'm sorry, like, I'm sorry, I understand this, you know, but here's the reason why I really need this change.
Yeah, like they've been doing this for like 10, 11 years now. So like he knows his channel. It's like a child, you know? But you know, he's so nice though. And it's like, he says that and I usually don't add anymore because I just feel bad doing that. But it's like, it's a business at the end of the day. Time is money, you know? So it's like, there's a lot of elements like psychologically I'm trying to work through still to be businessy, you know, because like in my head, like I said earlier, like at the end of the day, like I want to hang out with all these people I do work with and just be their friend more than anything. Like I don't want to be, hey, my thumbnail guy can do this. I want to be, hey, my friend Mason knows how to do thumbnails. He'll just make it for me. Like I want it to be like you trust that I am willing to that much. Like, because I just love what I do, you know? It's like I'm in a unique situation for the average person my age. And it's like to be able to just sit at this computer all day and not go anywhere. I'm kind of a caveman sometimes. So it's like it works out. And, you know, I love it. But like you said, though, like there is a certain level of, I guess, common sense might be the word. Like people might, it might be helpful to have a little bit to acknowledge that, hey, he is putting more time into this than normal, whatever. But like, I've thought about ways to price that because it's like, I thought about doing first 2 revisions are free. And then from then it's like an extra $10 or whatever. Like, I don't know. Because at the end of the day, like in those changes that we take 15 minutes for you to respond about, I could have made 2 more thumbnails. So I'm sitting there waiting on you. But it's like if I switch,
if you open that up, you're going to open it up to then people are going to be like, oh, well then I'll just wait, and you're doing 2 revisions for everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas before you were just doing one and they were happy with it. Now you got them thinking they get revisions.
And it's like it eats my hard drive space, so I'd never save thumbnails. There was this guy I did work for. He's got I think 1.5 million now, but back then he had 300,000. So he reached out. His name's Don Stever on YouTube, and it's like I feel like such a savage just name dropping these people in these stories, but it's like he's a very nice guy too. Like I'm just telling work stuff, you know. But basically, like he would ask for a thumbnail, I would do it. He's got a very niche market. It's like a meme channel basically. And then after the video is live, the next 2 days later or whatever, he would then ask for a revision, and I'm like, dude, I don't have the file anymore, so I have to go back and remake the thumbnail practically, and that's another thumbnail I'm making for a revision, you know. So it's like over time there's been a lot of evolution into figuring out the system, but I think I'm getting to a point where it's pretty direct forward now.
Okay, well, you know these things. Like, for example, you might that case that you said just now brings up maybe because there's a balance here between having a policy is good because you can tell people and you'd be like, here's my rates, they're easy to understand. Hey, come to me. And we can get that. Because often people don't want to engage a creative because they think, oh, how much is it going to be?
Right.
Or they're going to, So that's an awesome part of what you do, to say any price. But on the other hand, there is the balance that I get it as well, that you, not every job is the same. Not every job can fit into those 5 neat criteria that you've publicized. Some people will do a bit more. Some people you can feel like, nah, bro. Sometimes you'll, I guess, evolve some maybe rules or policy or upfront information for the client to know, like, hey, here's my stuff. And one of them might be something like, if you publish the video, if you make my thumbnail live, well, then that's a final line is drawn under this project, right? That's the final thing. And you probably got to be burnt once or twice on that one, like your story, before you realize, like, oh, I better make some sort of upfront policy about something like this.
Well, it's
so
like,
you know.
I think typically people understand, though, that it's just the common sense of it. Like, they're paying right now for this thing. They already paid. I already sent the file. Like, what more could you want out of that once you have the file? It's like, but then if you come back and you're like, hey, I need changes, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, just put it in Photoshop and use a clone brush, blah, 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 blah. But, like, obviously, like, I, whenever you say, hey, here's what I need, automatically my brain goes to hit this key, da, 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 da. You know, like, the keyboard shortcuts are pretty locked in. So, like, I don't really think about it much. I just do it. So it doesn't take me much time to do the revisions at the end of the day, but it's still time I'm taking out of a finished project, basically.
Sure.
In that regard. But that's very, very frequent, though. But
I wanted to. I know we're well. You okay for time here? Do you have to run off for something else? You good?
I'm good
for the moment. It's a question that I always bring up to anyone who's a creative on this show, and I always have the question like, is a manager a good thing? And I bring it to art, to musicians, to everything, to Steve. And anytime I see someone working on their own, and I wonder, because you've talked yourself, I see you, and you've been really honest with us today about, like, look, money is hard. It's hard to talk about money. And I think as creatives, it's hard to sell yourself, or in any business, let's say, maybe even it's also applicable to Steve's work, which is creative. I don't mean to say he's not, certainly, that it's hard to ask for money for you, to say my work is worth this much, particularly when someone goes, what? Huh? Really? And it's easier for someone else to say, my client is worth this much. And so for myself, when I am doing some live event, I'm doing some comedy or some hosting or something, I still have a sales manager, and she handles the sale. And we have a deal, like, she's got a commission, she's on a rate, and I'm really happy to pay her the commission that she, like, even sometimes the customer will come to me, and if it's not a customer I know well, if it's not a customer that I'm, like, I got to know him real well to be like, yeah, I know this guy, I'll work with him, don't worry about it. Everyone, I pass to her, she handles the deal, talks money, gets way more than, not that I get a lot of money, but gets more money than I'm like, holy shit, how did you ask for this much money?
Yeah.
And then once the deal is done, then it gets passed off to me, I handle everything else after that. And I love that relationship. Okay, your situation and your creative work is a little different. You're dealing directly with people, but is there ever sort of going to be a place, do you think, in your work for someone that maybe is handling those sort of deals and then letting you do even more of the creative work? How do you see your future?
That's a very good question. Okay, so I've thought about the day I have to hire somebody. I haven't thought about the day where I hire somebody to manage me. Because it's like, I am very hands-on with this. Like, I feel like that is my draw, besides the style, is like, I want to be your friend if you're going to talk to me this much. I don't want to just do business with you. Like, I want to go to lunch and hang out, whatever. Like, me and Steve and it was, Chris and Justin, like, we all went to a grill one night, and it was like we sat there for what, like 3 hours and just talked. And it's like, it was a fun time. Like, that's what makes it so worth it to me. Like, and I think through the internet, like, in regards to like the money confidence side of things, like, it was weird. So actually I didn't tell Steve this yet, but here you go. The day you met me, you were like, "You're Mason, right?" And I told Justin later, I'm like, "How did he know who I was?" Like, but like we thought maybe you'd overheard or something, but I didn't realize you had already followed me on Twitter. But like you were walking around, you were asking me about the house and stuff, and I'm like, how does he know everything? Like, but like it's weird because like I typically do devalue my own, not worth per se, but I guess in the same context it kind of is that. Like, I really don't want to be the guy people see and be like, wow, he's so cocky. Like, he's not worth the time or the money, blah, blah, blah. Like, at the end of the day, I'm literally just trying to form as many bonds as I can. And it's like, whenever I hear that, I hear like, I'm not being a good friend. You know what I mean? And like, I'm bad at not meshing those together, but I do that anyway. Because that's what's important to me, And it's like, if I hired somebody to be like, hey, here's what he charges, take it or leave it, maybe that would be easier for me. But like at the end of the day, again, like people come to me and then I'm taught, like I like to have the network of friends. Sure. And it's like, that is probably the caveat to me potentially hiring someone, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to give away those bonds.
I think a balance can be there though, Mason.
You think so? Yeah.
And that, and I understand, I get it. And I understand if you have not engaged that sort of person before, if you've never done something like that, it can seem like, oh yeah, I've got a salesperson on the front lines.
Right.
Take it or leave it. This is his price. Absolutely not. And it can be sometimes, right, you don't know a customer. Maybe I don't get introduced to them till after. But so in the system that I've been working on, first of all, I work a lot with my sales manager. So what I call we're partners, let's say, rather than she's managing me. I'm kind of a boss, but that she tells me when there's the gig on and I go and do it. So we talk a lot. And we're like, because I was doing this job before I had her. So I've got to tell her a lot about these relationships. I'm feeling her in.
Yeah.
Going, that guy's great. This thing, we did that thing together. Oh, I'm going to do him for a lower price. And I'm working with her like, do them for a lower price. I've always done that price for those guys. I don't mind. That girl smiled at me nice once, so I'll always do their event, for a cheaper price or something like that. So there is a lot of communication that can go on, so that because the sales manager wants to know or a good one, want to know you, wants to build off your relationships. Because a salesperson, and this is where our good man Steve's going to come in, it's about relationships, and the sales manager doesn't want to build them up from scratch. They want to use to be part of your crew, be part of that. And then there is still a process of back and forth where maybe they're booking an event, so she'll come to me and go like, hey, you've told me if XYZ happens, just book it. Don't worry about it. This time, the fourth thing is a little different. What do you think? Yeah, that's cool. I'll do the gig anyway. I don't care that it's only grandma's over 80. No problems. I'll do it. And then she go do it. So I think there is also a possible model in there.
Possible,
where it's because it has to be about you, Yes, but also ultimately, you do want to deflect yourself from some people, not your friends, but at some stage maybe the work is overwhelming or it gets too much, or now I'm blathering. But Steve, what do you think about sales in this regard?
It's not a completely, there are some very good points in here where just like within sales itself, it's kind of interesting. You were bringing up the fact that I had seen you over there, and I saw you, Justin, and I wanted to say, I hadn't seen Justin in a while, and we really hadn't talked much since probably 2019 when I first met him. And I knew who you were because I had just talked with Bob about you a couple times prior, just like, hey man, like, oh yeah, you need to use him. That's what he would say. It was, of course, Bob's
Bob.
great behind the scenes, cheering for everybody and helping everybody. But that's where I got in, and then that's the part of the salesman, like external person that I am anyway, running around trying to say hey to everybody. And like you said, I want to try to make everybody feel comfortable. And I don't want to ever come off feeling like the dickhead, but I'm sure there's like, oh, here comes Steve with his Steve-isms. He's going to tell us the same story 15 times from the last party. Here comes old Steve. He's going to tell us the same story he told us 35 minutes ago because he's had 2 beers and can't remember. So, I try, we all are going to have our own little things, but when you're genuinely caring about making friendships and relationships, that's going to go through. That's going to be fine. But at the same time, the thing that Lewis really is talking about here is how do you can't go along forever just doing it probably the way you're doing it. I think about it like, how do you scale this into something that's more maybe? And his approach isn't just about it's a little bit of putting a good gatekeeper in front of you, because you can go and then still build those relationships with the good clients. And let's face it, it's also a way to actually turn your clients that don't know the process, it turns them into good clients. Or it keeps the people that, like you say, are wanting 8 and 15 revisions that wind up costing you more. It pretty much prevents them from getting in the door. And then it's on them. It's never like, well, I just won't work for you. It's, well, I couldn't. And then the fact that you have somebody else is always going to be, people will know that at the point that's a business thing. Like you can't go to say anything that you need a service professionally done. How many times you go somewhere and you're like, well, I don't like your price. Right. Right. Or with anything.
Yeah. Like I did some work for somebody a few weeks ago, and I did a banner and logo and stuff for them like 2 years ago, and he reached out wanting some new stuff. The price is much different. He's like, so are you sure? Did you get your numbers right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, see, this is where the friend in me comes alive. You'll hear this. So he told me, he was like, so last time you charged me like $80 for these, and now they're like 180 for the logo, intro, whatever. And I'm like, well, I said, first, I'm not in the same position as I was 2 years ago. I have much more on my plate, so time is money, And I said, 2, PayPal, I mentioned this to you, Steve, like PayPal started taxing everything pretty much through business accounts. So it's like I have to figure that out. And general inflation that's been happening in the last 2 years, like I'd never want to be the guy that raised my prices, because like I like where they're at personally. Like, could they be more? Would people pay more? Maybe, but like I don't want to test the waters there, because I don't feel like the time I'm putting in is worth that. Maybe like I don't want to come off like I'm scamming people, because that's not what I'm doing. Like, and so real quick, I know you have a thought, but hold on. So
that's fine. I'm laughing.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So basically, like,
No,
I told him that, and he was like, well, like I kind of figured like with inflation and stuff, like it'd be like a $30 difference maybe, but not like 105. And I was like, hey, tell you what, I said I'll take $30 off, 150. He's like, okay. I said, okay. And we walked away happy. It's fine. But like stuff like that, like that's my biggest thing. Like, again, like you said, you're not going to walk into Walmart and be like, this plunger is way too much. I'm going to pay half. And it's like, it's a good plunger now. It's more in demand than it was 2 years ago. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm constantly struggling with this. I have had, and this is like, I've had people that like, they, like my rates, I'm like, look, man, do it now, because in 6 months they're going up. I mean, I can't sit at this. And most people want quotes, and I'm like, well, this is your range, and most end up at this price range. And I know it does make some people not want to do that, but at the same time, you have to put a value on your own time, so that, because again, my work's kind of the same way. You don't really know a lot of times what you're getting into. Some of these repair jobs and restorations are pretty straightforward. Other ones can have a whole can of worms you're opening. You don't know what you're getting into. And to try to quote somebody a simple rate on that is not easy.
No.
And then other people, like, they think they want to get all this work done, and then, like you say, you start doing the work, and then they're like, oh, well, I don't really want to pay all for all that
Yeah,
work. They're like, hey, that's perfectly fine, but just realize that's the rate. And then, like, I mean, I had another guy that wanted to get a bunch of smaller CRTs reworked, tons of work done to them, new tubes, new cap kits. I mean, this is like, and I had to basically tell him, I said, look, you're welcome to do this work, but this is the price for it. And the reason is it's so much work. It's actually more than these items are worth.
Yeah.
These is just crazy. I said, this is passion. If you really want to put the money into it, you can.
That's like what I'm doing.
I
like
said,
people aren't,
if you don't, then you're welcome to do it yourself kind of thing and learn. But I can't. Like you said, a couple years ago, my rates were different because I was learning and creating a craft, and I wasn't doing it full time. Yeah. Whereas, like, I'm sure it's the same thing for you. You were starting off learning a craft, building a business and a reputation. And during that time, you're not allowed to charge the most because then people will laugh at you. Oh, what have you done? Right? Yeah. But if you charge a reasonable amount, and then people actually go like, well, what has this person actually done? And then they go back, they go, whoa, look at all this stuff this guy's actually done. Yeah. I'm actually enticed to pay him because maybe he's the best in the planet at what he's doing, right?
Well, it's interesting
maybe
because
I just found him and he's actually valuable.
Yeah. Like, I feel bad putting a number on it in general because, like, it's a digital art form, you know? It's not like I'm sending you a package with something tangible, but it's like at some point you have to realize it's a business, you know? And
hours.
Huh?
You're selling hours.
Oh, yeah.
You're selling hours.
Time,
that's what
literally.
you're selling.
Yeah. And so, like,
yeah.
In my head, like, I just feel bad, but it's like, even in like social events, like at Retro World, meeting everybody, I'm bad at social stuff in the beginning. Like, maybe you noticed I was a little awkward in the beginning meeting you probably, or whatever. Like, I was following Justin around like a puppy dog, but it's like, once I'm there and once I talk to people originally, like in a group, then eventually, like, it's fine. Like, I get comfortable, like the girl that night, but like, at like this, it's online. Like, you know, you guys are both very welcoming and warm people, and I love that. But it's like, you know, I already know Steve. It's my first time talking to you. But it's like, it's really just more so me getting comfortable that way. But like, I think that's why the online thing is working pretty well, because I don't have that awkward barrier of interaction at the beginning, because I fumble. I'll admit that. I literally am so bad at that at the beginning. But it's like, you know, talking to people there, it's like, hey, what do you do? I'm not going to be like, oh, I do YouTube thumbnails. I can do yours. Because it's like, I just feel like, sometimes it comes off too sales pitchy. But like, actually, this is a random story, but do we have time for something else real quick?
Go.
Okay.
Go.
So have you guys ever seen Impractical Jokers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. So
doesn't ring a bell
for Lewis. No. Okay. So it's
it's
like a comedy quartet, basically. Like, in New York, they live in Staten Island. They basically just humiliate each other in public. They have hidden cameras, that kind of show. I loved that show growing up so much. It was like, my childhood was like, the teen years were not great at all. Home life was like, eh. But like, that kind of kept me sane, that show. So I just loved it. I was always there every Thursday night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, ready to watch it. And anyway, so one of them left the show just in December, and he's touring now, a comedy show elsewhere. So he's going to be in town in December in my area. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go see him. But here's the funny part. So I looked at his YouTube channel, and I'm like, man, you need some thumbnails. And so he has a meet and greet. Now, hear me out. He has a meet and greet, and I bought it, because I'm going to do a bunch of like banners and thumbnails and stuff as like a sales pitch, but form it like, hey, you made my childhood. Here's some files if you want to use them. But in there, it's going to be like socials and all that to reach me too, because like his marketing just needs help. And it's like, I want to help him. That'd be fun.
And you're giving it as a gift to him. Did I understand? Like, you're making, hey, that's interesting. I was about
or
to
like
thought,
a proposal.
I couldn't get it. I thought you were like going to like say, hey, if you need a thumbnail, come. You can pay me and I'll do a thumbnail. No, you're giving them as a gift to that guy. Okay, that's
because it's an interesting approach.
The whole thing into a taxable write-off.
Amen.
There, Lewis.
That's right.
The event has now become a marketing event, so all expenses from the event become minus the bottom line. So there you go.
I thought about that because it's like, I love that show, and I love that guy.
That's true. And
I was like,
that's a good idea.
And it's like, I want to just
think
build the network. No, go ahead.
The thought I think I would leave that last discussion we're having about money and all of that. Look, and look, I know, Mason, you know a lot of people, so I'm more like sort of giving some general thoughts to people that are listening, and maybe they are similar to you. They worry that they're coming off salesy, or worried that they're coming off too strong, or something like that. And I know that the Louis Zezerin solution was hire a sales manager, and I know not everybody is in that position or feel comfortable to that, or is even appropriate for your work. But I would say to someone like that, what I get a lot from my sales manager is just advice and a good perspective. I respect her, I trust her opinion, and that she'll say, "No, Louis, you're actually worth twice as much," or "Do this way." And to have someone in your life that you would listen to who could give you that advice, to be like, no, don't, it's not 1,000, 2,000 for that, really, like, really, and. And at least, maybe you don't do it, but at least somebody is telling you that you genuinely trust. And because I know I could see someone like you, Mason, it kind of goes up easy and you're like, oh, no, but I want to be friendly. Oh, no, I just want to do that. And someone who's like real close who can give you those truths, I think. And whether you take them on board or not, it's totally up to you.
Yeah.
So
and it's like, I've had people
have
tell
someone,
me.
seek out mentors. Yeah.
That's like
it
the
doesn't
best part
have
of
to
it
be
too.
somebody that works for you either.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
my last
that's my
story.
point. Yeah.
My last story would have been I had the arcade. I had to go fix an arcade machine last week, a Mortal Kombat machine, and it's for a local person that I know at a bar, and I had to give him an invoice, and I gave him this invoice, and he looked at it, and I was like, I don't know that. I felt like he kind of like was turned off by my invoice. Like maybe he thought it was too much or a little bit, but I went back and talked to my wife, and she's like, "Oh no, you're crazy. That's cheap, for what you did." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right," because I did kind of cut him. I was like, "That's even like 25% less than what I have to charge people online."
Yeah,
this is somebody locally that was like a family relative referral, but you still, and I don't think it was actually that way. I think I was just looking at him, trying to play mental gymnastics that weren't really there. So, but there's never a problem with something where like you're going to run into something like that where you go, well, is this a fair invoice? And then it's always good to have somebody that you can look at and have a clear discussion with.
Like, I've talked to Bob about it a little bit in certain situations, and he's like, dude, raise your prices. And I'm like he says, he doesn't say raise, but he's like, people would pay more. And it's like, he said that maybe twice. And I'm like, I've heard that from a good handful of people. And it's like, I understand that's kind of the reception people are giving, but also like, I feel bad. It's totally like,
well, you shouldn't feel bad. I think you should just preface it like this. Like, hey, look, man, you're getting me at a good rate right now, so use it while you can, because eventually you're probably right. I probably will have to raise my rates. Yeah. So it's really something you could turn into that, because there's going to become a day where something's going to happen. You're going to have to pay for some new license on some software. You're going to have to expand and get more hard drive space. You're going to need to do something.
What? Sorry.
Right.
Not this week. But
so
yeah, for sure.
It's all something. You don't want to be priced too low, but you also don't want to be priced too high.
Right.
It's
Sure,
good.
absolutely.
It's good to be.
Oh yeah.
It's fine to be there, but
I forgot to talk about this other part of the story I was telling earlier. I've had people. There was somebody that came to me and they're like, "Hey, how much are your thumbnails?" I told him. He's like, "Oh my gosh, is that it?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I was paying my last guy $50 each," and I'm like, "What am I doing?" Like,
right.
But it's like, I could never justify paying that for a YouTube thumbnail. Like, never. I'm never going to charge that.
It's because that's expensive. Because like, even my channel doesn't make that much money on a video.
And it's like most of these people, it's a passion project for them. So it's like, I factor that in too, because like some people do it full time, but like, those people bringing in the money to pay for the thumbnails. But whereas like, say some home arcade people and stuff, like people are totally just buying into their hobby, and like they're getting money from YouTube, so it's all taxable. But still, like, I don't feel like it's worth, like, I don't want people to come to me and think it's not worth what they're getting out of it,
Absolutely. And that comes back again, the thing we were talking about, the sliding scale. And it's that balance of the sliding scale in creativity, that real good to advertise prices, very good for customer understanding.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be like that. There's always the first guy or the guy you like or someone like that, and then a bigger company. And you said you don't want to, you said you want to make it flat and you don't want it to be based off number of views or likes or subs or something like that. And true. Maybe because subs is too harsh of a scale, but you'll have a scale. You know that. Guess what? Linus Tech Tips got a little bit more money. His clips generate so many thousands that yes, totally fine to pay $50.
Yeah,
totally fine to pay $50 for a clip.
Yeah.
Now, but of course, you don't get access to your customers' analytics necessarily, or very rudimentary things. So, how to create that? I don't have a formula for that. It's something that, as you feel yourself, you have to wing it. But then that balances off to how do you explain your intuition and sliding scale of pay of intuition to the customer who's like, I want a price list.
From advertisers, the way that the advertisers that will approach you and say, well, I'd like to approach you for marketing, but I need to see your video. They'll still ask for an analytics package or something. So I guarantee you that if there are probably some companies that are bigger, right, that are doing what you're doing, Mason. And if they get approached by somebody who, if I had 5 million subs and I said, I would like to approach you about doing thumbnail work, a lot of them probably do have a scale where it's like, what's your analytics based on these videos? How many people is this reaching? Because you're getting to a large enough scale where it's nowhere near a fair value of what you would be at your flat rate for something that is having an impact and actually generating way more.
But what about
return?
What about on the other side? This can't a formula of subs can't go on forever. Someone with 10 million subs, no, I want a 1.25% cut of all your subs. It
would have to be based on the views of a video, because
even Linus Tech Tips, I probably wouldn't pay more than $50 even if I was Linus, right?
Well, there's always going to be
at some
a cap,
point
right?
it's not worth it.
There's a cap.
Right.
There will always be a cap, and then with Linus, he probably. I mean, I talked to Shank. He said he has 60 employees. I'm sure a few of them are the ones working on the thumbnails.
Yeah.
So I bet you that's in-house. But it's a good example. There's not everybody's
as an
like
example.
that.
Well,
but then there is a point where, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Mason. No, I was done.
I was just going to say, on the flip side to that again, going back, you mentioned the big channels, 5 million subs or whatever. 2 years ago, I got hired on with The Things. It's a YouTube channel, pop culture, TV, whatever, doing thumbnails. But they had 30 people doing them probably, and they were $15 each. And at that point, I was like, okay, whatever. Sounds like it could be decent. I didn't realize, if we're talking about picky people, they're a whole corporation. I don't care what I'm going to say here. They were so freaking picky. It was unreal. The green wasn't the right hue, make it a little 3 hexes over. I'm like, what is this? It was crazy. And it's literally a picture of, they want, for example, it was what's it called? Not Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland. So they had the remake with Tim Burton, right? And they had the original movie. So the video thumbnail I was doing was a comparison between the movie frames and the trailer. So they wanted they had a whole package contained with their model for thumbnails and stuff. So I was looking at that, trying to guide it, so they wanted, and I literally quote from this, is they want the exact same pose between the trailer and the picture for the comparison. I get that. It's not the same. It is not the same pose. And now this is a live action compared to an animated movie. They want the same scene, whatever, but then you do it, and they're like, oh, she's not looking in the camera. And I'm like, I can't tell Alice to look at the camera for this thumbnail. What do you want me to do? And so, that got to be meticulous, to the point I was putting 2 hours in one. I was like, okay. On my birthday that year, I was like, I can't do this anymore. They're like, oh, is everything okay? I was like, it's not worth my time. Bye. But I felt so bad doing that. But, they had 5 million, though. I'm like, if it's $15 for, it's going to go get... It's the type of videos they'll publish 8 a day and get a few thousand each probably at the start, and then it'll build up slowly. But like some of it's just not worth it. So I've learned in time that just doing it on my own has been more beneficial so far anyway. But
fair enough.
I don't know. Like I love the online stuff, but I'm trying to do like local things too, like the college. Like I said, I just bought a new drone, tax write off, a couple weeks ago. So that'll be here early October to do real estate videos with locally.
Oh,
So,
dope.
yeah. So like I'm building a new website right now. Actually, not like right now, but like in the process of doing it. It's like I'm over here just typing. No, but basically
You work
like,
so hard, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, it's all good. But basically like I'm trying to get a formula for like each of these pages. Like UI design, I've done a lot of with the at games. I did that for it's like 10 months. I loved it. There's just so many things I like to get my hands dirty with this field. It's like the possibilities are endless, and you're never going to learn everything, but that's the best part about it. So
Nice.
All right, so let's get
Yeah.
here one real quick second. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you? And also, why don't you take a second and just go through maybe a list of the things we know we talked about thumbnails, but you do other things normally. And
Yeah.
if you want to mention any of that, that would be
Sure.
great. So,
So you can reach me at Mason Conrad on Twitter. It's without the first O, so just MASN Conrad. I do YouTube thumbnails, branding packages like logos, profile pictures, animated intros, and cards. That's just on there. Like I'll do social media marketing stuff, make 30 posts a month for you for a fixed rate. Stuff like that. I mean, like any UI design, if people watching this like that kind of stuff, like I'll do mock-ups and wireframe anything for you. That's pretty much it. I mean, lots of Photoshop, anything Photoshop. I'll put your head on a horse if you want. Whatever, we'll make it happen. But
Bob's gonna get excited.
oh,
One.
yes,
That's a
a
joke for if
custom-
you've
a
stayed 1
custom
hour
calendar.
45. Then you get the Bob Horse joke here in the episode. Good one, Mason. Thanks very much.
thank you so much for having
coming
me,
on,
guys.
mate.
This was fun.
It's
yeah.
cool.
Thanks for
Good
coming.
discussion. Thanks, Steve. You're doing good. Steve, how you doing? You got a busy week? Real fast?
Oh yeah, busy week. I'm about to go get my. I've been trying to get my fleet of vehicles ready for the winter.
Okay, yeah.
I got a new car. I had to go get tires and a new windshield on another one, so they're done with that. But man, CRTs, they're just like rolling in here and rolling out. I don't know what's going on. I keep wondering when they were going to run out of CRTs, but I guess everybody's just bought them already, and now it's just they're all going to need repairing. So
They're
that's
all coming to
good.
you. All right. Thanks very much, Steve. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mason. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone, for watching. See you next time.